You did talk about something very specific, and it's the reason that I wanted to talk to you about today specifically. And I want to hear more about this wonderful, lovely pleasure cruise that you're about to take in the glorious Mediterranean Sea. Tell me all about it and what inspired it.
Well, I wish, and I guess this is the way I'm going to have this in my head too, as a glorious pleasure cruise. Like you go on those Caribbean cruises,
like a Disney cruise with excursions.
Yeah, the past ones that have been attempted, and they've attempted these since 2008. The first couple were successful. They were successful in getting through and landing in Gaza. And because they surprised themselves because there was this big blockade for a long time. And the first couple times they tried this, they weren't as prepared because they thought, well, we aren't going to get through, but they did get through. And in fact, I understand that they rescued a couple of amputees, and this was back, Israel has been doing this periodic bombing, which they call mow the lawn, in order to keep which they thought was keeping the Palestinian people, the refugees in Gaza, so that they would never even think about trying to escape or dissenting against their rulers. So they thought this was working, mowing the lawn. And the group that tried this, they were successful a couple of times. But then I think in 2010, they tried they tried to bring more humanitarian aid. I think, if I remember right, it was 10,000 tons of food and humanitarian aid. And that's when the Israelis got serious, and they stopped the flotilla. They repelled helicopters. They shot from helicopters. They rappelled down and killed 10 of the humanitarian activists that were on the one boat, Mavi Marmara. And so that's when, people then realized, and then, of course, turned them around, imprisoned the people for a period of time in Israel and deported them, etc. So that's when it was recognized that this is not really a pleasure cruise. This is, and in fact, you could say it's foolhardy. I have one friend who said, well, if you don't attempt these fool's errands, maybe the umpteenth time, you will never get anywhere. And I think that's right. You have no way of knowing of any success, but you do, at this point in time, I'm just not willing to watch genocide for 6 full months, killing babies and children wantonly, then watching my fellow Americans become desensitized to it.
I am an active duty member of the United States Air Force, and I will no longer be complicit in genocide. I'm about to engage in an extreme act of protest, but compared to what people have been experiencing in Palestine at the hands of their colonizers, it's not extreme at all. This is what our ruling class has decided will be normal.
One of my other friends, Craig Murray, the former British ambassador, he gave a podcast recently. He said, I was crying when I first saw this murder going on of these babies and children, and after all these months, he goes, I'm not crying as much as before, and that really scares me because that means that you're losing your own soul at that point. So at this point, yes, it's when I got the opportunity to go. And, I'm of a certain age. I've had a decent life. I do have 4 children and 5 grandchildren so far. And I'm thinking in the future, people have to try now, if we have any chance at all of budging, just even slightly budging off this really, really horrible trajectory that we are on, which I fear is leading to World War III, and I'm hardly the only one. I mean, yeah, I read a lot, and I see other experts predicting this. Our own veteran intelligence professionals group is predicting that unless we can change course, we are going to have World War III on our hands. And then it's just I think it's just a question of time when you have a World War III between superpowers that it's going to go nuclear. So this is what I think that we need to, again, I don't have high hopes for having a world of paradise where we all are, living in a heaven on earth and everyone is happy. And no, far from it. I'm far from being a utopian. But I think there is a chance that we maybe, if more people try hard, and even to the point as we are doing of basically risking our lives here, that you know what, maybe there is a chance that we can budge this just a little bit off of the horrible trajectory we're on and have a little softer landing. It's still going to be miserable because of everything that's gone on before this. It's going to be miserable.
Yeah,
but,
there's no silver
but
lining. There's no silver
worst?
lining when you contemplate the fact that 15,000 children have already died.
Yeah,
it's hard to look
that's
at anything that manifests in a positive light, but we can look at it from the point of view of preventing more suffering, more death. And there's a great window of opportunity right now for this very particular action, because what we're seeing, and going back to the IDF killing people who are part of the flotilla, but we're seeing this very deliberate war on aid. First of all, delegitimizing the United Nations Relief Agency, claiming it's all been infiltrated by Hamas, which they've used as a pretext to keep the trucks from being able to enter Gaza.
Children in Gaza are hungry, and the fear is that they're about to get hungrier. Donors to UNRWA, the main UN agency that supports Palestinians, including the UK, withdrew their funding 10 days ago because of allegations in a confidential Israeli document that this programme has now seen. The document repeats an allegation the Israel Defense Force has made many times, that the Hamas terrorist organisation has been methodically and deliberately emplacing its terrorist infrastructure in a wide range of UN facilities and assets, but provides no evidence to support its explosive new claim that UNRWA staff were involved in the terror attacks on Israel.
And then secondly, even when this World Kitchen charity jumps in to pick up the slack, we just saw an unconscionable attack on their vehicles, a very specific, deliberate, coordinated military strike on 3 vehicles, killing all 7 of the aid workers. Of course, Israel claimed it was a mistake, but obviously it isn't a mistake.
Celebrity chef Jose Andres told Reuters in an emotional interview on Wednesday that the Israeli airstrike that killed 7 of his World Central Kitchen aid workers in Gaza had been deliberately targeted, and he rejected Israeli and U.S. assertions that it was a mistake.
And the most heinous thing imaginable, and one of the most unconscionable things that's happened since this all kicked off into high gear, was Israel bringing aid trucks in themselves to use as bait to then massacre the Palestinians who came out in throngs to get the aid.
Over 100 Palestinians were killed waiting for aid in Gaza City on Thursday, bringing the death toll in Gaza to over 30,000. Israeli forces opened fire on the crowd as they pulled flour and canned goods off trucks, per an Associated Press report. According to reporting from Al Jazeera's Ismail Al-Ghoh, after opening fire, Israeli tanks advanced and ran over many of the dead and injured bodies, saying, quote, "It is a massacre on top of the starvation threatening citizens in Gaza."
The window I'm talking about, though, is that public pressure, global awareness of this issue has now reached a boiling point, and we're starting to see Western leaders question their allegiances with Israel, and you guys are intersecting with this right at a moment where as crazy as the IDF are and Israel may be, how crazy are they? And how crazy would they be to do anything deliberately malignant to your action? Because if all the world is watching this in light of everything that's happened, in light of all the new tensions, and you posted just the other day about how the United Nations Human Rights Council are now demanding not only investigations into Israel for war crimes, but any nation that's aided and abetted the war crimes.
For 2 hours, Nicaragua laid out its case against Germany. For the first time, 2 countries appeared at the International Court of Justice, which aren't directly involved in the atrocities at stake. But Nicaragua argues Germany is indirectly involved by sending arms and ammunition used against civilians in Gaza.
This has kind of hit a fever pitch where tolerance for this genocide is almost reaching a breaking point. And you guys are intersecting with this right at the most crucial moment where, for me, as a rationalist, it feels very difficult to imagine that Israel is going to do something crazy like attack the flotilla. Or even, I mean, maybe they will prevent the aid from getting to the shores of Gaza. That's one thing. But to do anything extremely malignant and actually with all these eyeballs on it. So that's the one thing where if I could talk to your family members, and I'm sure your family members are absolutely stressed out. Like if my mum was going off to do something like this, I'd be like freaking out, of course. I mean, I'm sure they're not very happy about it. But if I could say one thing to them, I would say it's almost hard to imagine, given the circumstances that I just described, that Israel, as crazy as they are, would be crazy enough to do something malignant and foolish like attacking the flotilla.
If you want to know what an unfolding genocide looks like, open your eyes. It looks like the forced famine of 1.1 million innocents. We must write our story in this moment of what it means and who we are as Americans. And our story must be not that we were good men who did nothing.
Well, I agree with you that, and I think that is the timing. I agree with you that in terms of all of what's gone on before and after, that perhaps the timing is good. It's in our favor. That's true enough. I would agree up till that point. The one thing, and I think that basically this would be the most optimistic. Hopefully it's the case. So the one thing I worry about is when you said all the eyeballs on this is, and it's one of the reasons I'm talking with you, is we have to get more eyeballs. And that's definitely the case in the United States and NATO and obviously Israel. So, and on this polarized side of things, you know, the mainstream media still is holding a lot of sway. The polls have changed. Here in Minnesota, we had the highest percentage of vote against for non-committed was in Minnesota, where I live. We were 20% of our vote was uncommitted in comparison to Michigan only had 13%. So we're doing well here in educating people. But the one thing I worry about is there's still, in terms of a tipping point, I still think we need more people. We need to reach more people and wake them up. Some of the problem with the atrocities that have been on, of course, TikTok. I mean, they wouldn't be trying to ban TikTok if it wasn't for the fact that it's waking people up, and they had too many people showing the massacres and these horrible things on TikTok. So that's why our Zionist groups are wanting to ban it. So, but I'm still worried. I'm still worried that we're not enough right now in order to keep Israel from continuing to do the stupidest things possible. And this latest one, when they said it's a mistake, well, there's two different ways of looking. Some of the smarter Israelis have recognized, yes, it was a mistake to kill these 7, because they were the ones that were on our side. They were the ones that had been, it's not a charity. The World Kitchen was kind of a mercenary group like Halliburton and the others that give resources to the military. I think they had worked for the IDF before this. So
Who funds them? Who funds them?
They're profit. They're not a nonprofit. They were making money, so the governments were paying them, and I don't know who was paying them exactly, but they were being paid a lot of money. One of our veteran intelligence professionals, Larry Johnson, he's a former CIA guy, and he actually knew that celebrity chef Jose Andres, and he said he's the one who said, yeah, they're mercenaries. They're just out to make money. And he also said that Chef Jose is like best friends with Blinken. You know, I don't know if he was exaggerating a little on that or not, but he said, oh, yeah, they're like they were in the State Department, you know. So this was a real mistake on the part, really stupid on the part of Israelis then to kill that group. And so that shows you that, yeah, they're reckless and stupid. And yes, that's right. They were doing it intentionally. There's no doubt it was intentional.
Why do you think it was intentional? Why do you think they did it?
Well, the evidence of it being intentional is that this wasn't just one bomb that went off target and it just accidentally killed him. No, they targeted him over and over. They went from one car to the next car, and they targeted the next car. I mean, there's how they could have lied. And the other reason that this was intentional is they lied. The Israelis initially said that the reason for bombing them was they said, well, there was an armed Hamas guy in there with them. And then they kind of went off of that and said, well, no, it was just a mistake. And then someone said, well, how could you not see the markings? I mean, they've tried to. It's like when you tell a lie and it doesn't work, and then you try to move from that to something else. By the way, I worked for 24 years in the FBI, sometimes interviewing criminals, and I have a pretty good grasp of how people lie. And that's one of the ways is they change their story. They try to change their story deftly. And, you know, so people don't realize they changed it. But, yeah, they changed the story. There's no doubt this was intentional. But the question is, was it smart on the part of whoever ordered that? No, I think now they recognize that, that was kind of a dumb mistake. We should have, they were on our side. We were trying to get the World Kitchen to take the place of UNRWA. So, this was a dumb thing.
But this is unique in that their route was approved by the Israeli military. They were under the personal protection of an Israeli military unit. They're coordinating with the Israeli military. And as Aaron said, they're there on a special mission to supplant UNRWA, the United Nations, which Israel is seeking to kick out. So it really doesn't get any more psychotic than this. And the details of the killings are just, absolutely disgusting. I really would love for the drone footage to come out. It would look a lot, I think, like the collateral murder video we saw of the U.S. military in Iraq released by Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. But
you make these dumb mistakes like this when you are reckless. And this is exactly what I worry about with the superpowers going to war with each other, is that once things become more and more desperate, and we see it with our mass shooters, the suicidal mass shooters. Once you really become desperate and hopeless, you're capable of anything. And you're not thinking in the normal way that you would be. And that's what I worry about, too, with this, is that there are hotheads. Every time I've been in any group, even in government, especially, I shouldn't say even in government, but especially in government, there's always going to be a hothead or two, and then there's going to be some more rational-minded people. You saw this in the Cuban Missile Crisis. I wasn't in the room, but there were only two rational-minded people in that room with JFK, and the rest were Curtis LeMay hotheads. In the FBI, my two bosses, I had two prior bosses, they were my immediate prior bosses, were at Waco when the SWAT teams got tired of waiting, and the hotheads in the group convinced their bosses, and against, by the way, the advice of the cooler-minded behavioral profilers. There were behavioral psychologists down in Waco in the FBI, and they were saying, no, don't do this. This could all blow up, blah, blah, blah. They actually were predicting that this would not go smoothly to raid after having the standoff for about 2 months when they decided to raid the David Koresh's cult at Waco. So there was an argument, and again, you have this mixture of people in any group, and in that case, the hotheads won. And then, of course, they killed 20, 30 children and a whole bunch of people in there that they obviously weren't intending to kill, but it was predictable because, again, the less rational-minded people in the group prevailed. And I would say that's probably the same thing going on the side of Israel. There may be a couple people, as you just said, there may be a couple now that have said, hey, no, we really shouldn't. We really have to let some humanitarian aid in now because we're looking bad and, we don't want this. I have a feeling there probably are some, but I also have the pessimistic thought that there probably are still a lot of, for lack of a better person, I just thought of Pompeo. Pompeo was guided by vengeance on Assange. And I know I'm mixing up a bunch of things, but it was a stupid thing, by the way, for Trump. It was really stupid on his part to let Pompeo indict and then prevail with the Ecuadorian government to hand him up. And that was a stupid thing. In fact, it was a mistake. It was a tactical mistake because now it's turned into a really kind of a millstone around Biden. Biden doesn't want to have a trial on freedom of press right before the election, so it was a dumb thing on Pompeo. But guess what? Those people, Ray McGovern calls them the crazies. And in government, but in any group, you're going to always have this mixture of people. And then it just kind of depends on who wins the day.
They started something they can't stop. The crazy.
We're all concerned with Evans City, Mr. Hawks.
If we have to push the button, we just say the weapon went off.
Get me the president.
A lethal terror snowballs into hell. The Crazies. Rated R.
This is Winston the Homicidal Computer. And you've been listening to an excerpt from Cinephobia Radio. For the complete episode, visit the website at www.cinephobia-radio.com. So until next time, vidi well my little droogies. Vidi well.